Diyos. Maraming salamat po sa buhay at lakas na aming taglay, sa liwanag ng kaisipan at sa pagkakataong maipagpatuloy ang pag-aaral ng mga kabataan. Gabayan mo po ang bawat isa sa amin. Anuman ang bahagi na aming gagampanan, naway maging maayos at matagumpay ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral na aming gagawin sa araw na ito. Patawarin mo po kami sa aming mga pagkukulang at pagkakasala, at sa aming paggawa, ikaw po ang aming makasama. Amen.
What's going on, Art Wonders? It's me once again, Sir Harold, your Wonder Art teacher, and you are still watching Valenzuela Live. Are you ready to time travel once more and explore different places full of wonderful things? Buckle up and be ready with your paper, pen, and self-learning pocket as we take on the Art Wonderful expedition on the art of Renaissance and Baroque period only here in The Art Wonderland.
Time travel and seize the world with full fun of learning. Discover the arts and crafts that represents culture and traditions. This is The Art Wonderland with Sir Harold and Bonky.
But before we begin with our Art Wonderful expedition, let us first be reminded of the protocols to follow during the live streaming class.
Protocols to follow during the live streaming class. Respect everyone. Agree to recognize and abide by the protocols in the live stream and respect the feelings, rights, or traditions of everyone. No hate speech. Do not express or discourage violence towards a person or group based on something such as race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. Be guided with the anti-cyberbullying law. Make sure that everyone feels safe. Bullying of any kind isn't allowed, and degrading comments about things such as race, religion, culture, sexual orientation, gender, or identity will not be tolerated. No promotion of products or items. Give more to this group than you take. Selling of products, self-promotion, spam, and irrelevant links aren't allowed. Use appropriate words in giving suggestions, comments, and queries. We're all in this together to create a welcoming environment. Let's treat everyone with respect. Healthy debates are natural, but kindness is required. After the FB live streaming, attend follow-up discussion in the different platforms provided by your subject teachers such as Messenger, Google Classroom, Google Meet, or MS Teams. Maximize the features of the different platforms to deepen your understanding of the competencies with the help of your subject teachers.
I hope everyone will be guided by the protocols for us to maintain order during our session. At the end of our Art Wonderful expedition, you are expected to create artworks guided by techniques and styles of the Renaissance and the Baroque periods. Explain the influence of iconic artists belonging to the Renaissance and Baroque periods. Apply different media techniques and processes to communicate ideas, experiences, and stories showing the characteristics of the Renaissance and the Baroque periods. Evaluate works of art in terms of artistic concepts and ideas using criteria from the Renaissance and the Baroque periods. Lastly, show the influences of the Renaissance and Baroque periods on the Philippine art form. Before you get fully excited, here once again our art travel buddy, Bonky, to guide and help you in accomplishing different tasks in our Art Wonderful expedition.
Hello, Art Wanderers. Let's review your previous journey with Ma'am Ivy on the arts of the Renaissance and Baroque period by playing a game called Artists and Artworks of the Renaissance and Baroque period. Each number will contain a description of an artist or artwork from the Renaissance and Baroque periods, and you will select which artist or artwork is being described from the options provided. You may key in your answers in our comments section, or you may write them directly on your answer sheets. I will give you 5 seconds for each item. Are you ready? Let's begin. Number 1. It was the first known free-standing nude statue produced since ancient times. David. Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Bacchus. Moses. Did you answer, David? You are right. Number 2. A painter, architect, scientist, and mathematician, and was known as the ultimate Renaissance man because of his intellect, interest, talent, and his expression of humanist and classical values. Caravaggio. Da Vinci. Michelangelo. Rubens. The correct answer is Da Vinci. Number 3. It was Raphael's last painting which he worked on up to his death. Commissioned by Cardinal Giulio de' Medici, the late Pope Clement VII, the painting was conceived as an altarpiece for the Narbonne Cathedral in France. Samson and Delilah. Portrait of Helene Formant. Maria Theresa. The Transfiguration. If you answered The Transfiguration, you are right. Number 4. A Flemish Baroque painter and well known for his paintings of mythical and figurative subjects, landscapes, portraits, and Counter-Reformation altarpieces. Caravaggio. Da Vinci. Donatello. Rubens. Rubens is the correct answer. For the last number, the portrayal of pain had always related to the idea of redemption as represented by the seated Madonna holding Christ's body in her arms. The Last Supper. The School of Athens. Pieta. David. It's Pieta. Great job, art wanderers. Back to you, Sir Harold.
Thank you, Bonky, for that art wonderful task. Now, let us see what you know about the characteristics, styles, and techniques that are significant and represent 2 art periods such as the Renaissance period and the Baroque period by having your second task entitled, That's My Style. You will identify whether the characteristics, styles, or techniques of art belong to the Renaissance or Baroque. You may write your answers on your answer sheet or notebook, or just simply key in directly in your comment section. Take it away, Bonky!
Number 1. This art period was characterized by accurate anatomy, scientific perspective, and deeper landscape. If you answered Renaissance period, you are correct. Number 2. The paintings during this period were illustrated key elements of Catholic dogma, either directly in biblical works or indirectly in imaginary or symbolic work. If your answer is Baroque period, that is right. Number 3. Artists during this period depicted real-life figures, and their sculptures were naturalistic portraits of human beings. If you answered Renaissance period, you are also right. Number 4. Architecture during this period was characterized by its symmetry and balance. If your answer is Renaissance period, you are doing great. Number 5. Sculptures during this period were typically larger than life-size or marked by a similar sense of dynamic movement, along with an active use of space. If you answered Baroque period, that is correct. Number 6. Architecture during this period was designed to create spectacles and illusions. Thus, the straight lines of the Renaissance were replaced with flowing curves. If your answer is Baroque period, you are indeed doing the right decision. Number 7. Cangiant, chiaroscuro, sfumato, and unione were the 4 significantly different modes of techniques of painting in this period. If your answer is Renaissance period, affirmative. You got it right. And for the last number, number 8. Tenebroso, fresco, and rococo were significant styles during this period. If your answer is Baroque period, you are certainly correct. Wonderful! You've identified the different characteristics, styles and techniques of art that belong to Renaissance and Baroque period. Congratulations! Back to you, Sir Harold.
It was mentioned on our previous task the different significant styles and techniques in the Renaissance arts and Baroque arts. We are now going to discuss and understand more about those styles and techniques to communicate ideas, experiences, and stories where the characteristics of the Renaissance and the Baroque periods presented. Let us start with the so-called 4 canonical painting forms of the Renaissance period: sfumato, unione, chiaroscuro, and cagnante were the 4 graphical approaches that distinguished early modern Italian art. Sfumato is a painting technique in which colors are blended. Around the figures, sfumato creates an image with no lines or edges, creating a hazy, dreamy look. A comparison of 2 artists can be found here. Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci are 2 of the most famous Renaissance artists. Botticelli, who does not utilize sfumato, sketched the figures with care. Venus's chin is sharply defined with a black outline. In his Mona Lisa, Leonardo, who used sfumato, achieves a genuine gradient of shadows. Leonardo da Vinci was a great observer of nature who was fascinated by the way our eyes saw the universe. We don't notice outlines surrounding persons or items. As a result, Leonardo used sfumato to depict the world as we view it. Unione is extremely like sfumato. Raphael was reacting to Leonardo's sfumato. Unione also tries to achieve a gradual color transition. Unione, unlike sfumato, uses brighter, more saturated colors. This can be seen in Raphael's painting. Raphael, like Leonardo, does not utilize outlines, although he does employ brilliant colors, unlike Leonardo. Chiaroscuro is a painting technique in which the painter produces the strong contrast between light and dark to create a dramatic effect. Deep dark shadows and dazzling highlights are juxtaposed in a chiaroscuro art. Chiaroscuro gives a dramatic impression on the figure that sometimes resembles a spotlight. This also gives the figures a more rounded and three-dimensional appearance. The Renaissance and Baroque period saw a lot of use of chiaroscuro. Tenebroso, a point and much more dramatic approach by Caravaggio, would make him famous. Tenebroso is a chiaroscuro style that emphasizes the contrast between light and dark. Cañante is the fourth Renaissance canonical painting mode. A change in hue or color is used to show shadows and highlights in Cañante. The paintings on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo are a magnificent example of this technique. Look at the Prophet Daniel's robe. You can see that the darkened part of the robe is green, while the highlighted part is yellow. Understanding this four canonical painting mode can make seeing and viewing Renaissance paintings a lot easier. Let us now move on to the three exceptional Baroque art styles and techniques, starting with Tenebroso.
Tenebroso is an Italian word that means dark or gloomy. Tenebroso is a term used in fine art to describe a painting technique in which dark colors predominate over light colors and great contrast of light and dark areas are particularly expressive and dramatic. A different word, chiaroscuro, is sometimes used to describe this style of painting. In Italian, chiaroscuro means light and shade. Tenebrism is an art movement that abuses chiaroscuro, and its adherents are called as tenebrists. In Spanish, tenebrose, the one who gave birth to darkness and brought light into the world. The tenebrism style is commonly assigned to Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio, a Renaissance painter. This is how you characterize the style that he created. The figures in the foreground of the artwork are pulled out of conditional black area by bright light. Figures with drawing light provide a sense of three-dimensional volume. However, the darkness will not readily relinquish its places, leaving dense dark shadows on persons and objects. Painting with water-based pigments over freshly laid plaster, primarily on wall surfaces, is known as fresco painting. Colors are created by crushing dry powder pigments in pure water and then drying and setting with the plaster to become a permanent part of the wall. Fresco painting is perfect for murals because it has a colossal style. It's long-lasting and has a matte finish. Throughout the history of art, three forms of fresco painting have emerged: buon fresco, mezzo fresco, and fresco secco. Buon fresco, Italian for true fresh, is a fresco painting technique in which water-ground alkaline-resistant pigments are applied to wet plaster. It differs from fresco secco and finto fresco techniques, which use paint on dried plaster. Fresco secco, also known as a secco or fresco finto, is a wall painting technique in which pigments are mixed with an organic binder and or lime and applied to dry plaster. Casein paint, tempera paint, oil paint, and silicate mineral paint are examples of paints that can be used. The secco technique differs from the fresco technique, in which the painting is done on a layer of wet plaster. Mezzo fresco, on the other hand, is painted on an almost dried intonaco, Italian term for the final, very thin layer of plaster on which a fresco is painted, and was quite popular during the Renaissance in Italy. Rococo, also known as late Baroque, is a highly ornamental and theatrical style of architecture, art, and decoration that uses asymmetry, scrolling curves, gilding, white and pastel colors,
sculpted molding, and trompe-l'oeil fresco to create surprise and the illusion of motion and drama. It is frequently referred to as the final expression of the Baroque movement. Understanding these three exemptional Baroque art style and techniques can make seeing and viewing Baroque paintings a lot easier. Let us now discover the influences of the Renaissance art and the Baroque art on the Philippine art forms. In the 16th century, the Baroque style was brought by the Spanish and Portuguese to the Philippines, where it became the prominent style of building large and small churches. Large Baroque churches often have a proportionally very wide facade which seems to stretch between the towers. During this time, the Spaniards used paintings as religious propaganda to spread Catholicism throughout the Philippines. These paintings, mostly on the church walls, featured religious figures in Catholic teachings. The pre-colonial architecture of the Philippines consisted of nipa huts made from natural materials. However, there are some traces of large-scale construction before the Spaniards came. An example of this is the pre-colonial walled city of Manila, which was dismantled by the Spaniards and rebuilt as intramuros with its houses, churches, and fortress after the Spanish colonization. During the 300 years of Spanish colonization, Philippine architecture was dominated by Spanish influences. After that wonderful tour of the various styles and techniques in arts, the influence of iconic artists of the Renaissance and Baroque periods, and the influence of the Renaissance and Baroque periods on the Philippine art form, let us do an art activity called portrait painting. By the end of the 15th century, Rome had displaced Florence as the principal center of the Renaissance art, reaching a high point under the powerful and ambitious Pope Leo X. The three great masters, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, dominated the period known as the High Renaissance. The Baroque period in art history came directly after the Renaissance. Mass and movement are the principles of the Baroque styles. It did not aim for perfection or the beauty of growth, but rather focused on an event. Artworks from this era showed exaggerated emotions on the portrayed experience. Exaggeration can be seen in the forms, gestures, mass, space, color, energy, and light. Our guest art wanderer artist will showcase his talent to demonstrate to us his own concept of portrait painting. He is an alumni and academic achiever with high honors of BIGNAY National High School and currently a senior high school student at Punturin Senior High School. He joined and won different art contests. Let us all welcome and watch Mark Bernal's own concept of his portrait painting. Do you have fun doing and watching portrait painting? That's great! And to answer some questions on his experience in making his own portrait painting, let us have once again our art wanderer artist, Mr. Mark Bernal.
Hello Art Wanderers, hello Valenzuelanos, and hello Sir Harold.
Hello Mark, and thank you for gracing and sharing your talent with us today. I just have some few questions about your experiences in doing your own portrait painting. Let's start with this first question. What are the elements of arts have shown in your painting that depicts Renaissance or Baroque style?
Since I chose Baroque style painting, I used to make my painting colors more dramatic. I make the woman's face and movement more expressive and dramatic so that people can understand the conveyed message of it. I also use vivid details to enhance the overall realism of my painting.
How are these elements and principles of art important in creating an artwork?
The elements and principles of art are crucial in the creation of an artwork because they are the visual tools that the artist uses to make an artwork. It is difficult to make a piece of art without using at least one of the art elements and principles. Like to what I do in my painting, I use art elements and principles to convey the meaning of my artwork.
What was the message conveyed in your own painting?
My message here is that we don't need to face the challenges alone. I use a wound to represent the sufferings and challenges that we face in our life. I make the face of the woman more dramatic and more expressive that she's suffering from pain. On my painting, I used to make the woman heals her own wound to signify that she's solving her own problem. Like what I have said, it depicts the sufferings that we don't share with others, or the hindrances we face on our own. I end up with this because I know that each of us have our own set of problems that we don't let other people know.
How do you feel about your own work?
I'm happy and grateful that I was able to complete a Baroque style painting. I'm pleased with the outcome of my artwork, since this is my first attempt in painting in Baroque style.
Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Bernal, for having us on our tour today. And to wrap up our Art Wonderful expedition to the world of Renaissance and Baroque art, let us have once again our art travel buddy, Bonky.
Line, shape, space, color, value, and texture are important elements of arts that help express feelings, mood, and meaning through art symbols. Art is very important in the promotion of cultural pride and unity. The greatest cathedral building of the Renaissance period was the rebuilding of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The Baroque style was brought by the Spanish and Portuguese to the Philippines, where it became the prominent style of building for large and small churches. The architecture of the Philippines reflects the history and heritage of the country. The pre-colonial architecture of the Philippines consisted of a nipa hut made from natural materials. The unique architecture of the churches in the Philippines did not just reflect the adaptation of Spanish/Latin American architecture to the local environment, but also of the church's political influence.
I hope you have fun while learning in our Art Wonderful expedition with Bonky, because we already did. Right, Bonky?
Yes, Sir Harold, and I hope that our art wanderers will still join on the third leg of our Art Wonderful expedition, the arts of the neoclassic and romantic period.
Once again, this is Sir Harold, your Wonder Art teacher.
And I am Bonky, your art travel buddy.
And always remember, art is extremely vital in the promotion of our cultural pride and unity. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good day, and see you on the third leg of our tour.